The Quest for Erebor. He would say no more that day, but later we brought the matter up again, and he told us the whole strange story, how he came to arrange the journey to Erebor, why he thought of Bilbo, and how he persuaded the proud Thorin Oakenshield to take him into his company. I cannot remember all the tale now, but we gathered that to begin with Gandalf was thinking only of the defence of the West against the Shadow. I was very troubled at that time, he said, for Saruman was hindering all my plans. I knew that Sauron had arisen again and would soon declare himself, and I knew that he was preparing for a great war. How would he begin? Would he try first to reoccupy Mordor, or would he first attack the chief strongholds of his enemies? I thought then, and I am sure now, that to attack Lorien and Rivendell as soon as he was strong enough was his original plan. It would have been a much better plan for him, and much worse for us. You may think that Rivendell was out of his reach, but I did not think so. The state of things in the north was very bad. The kingdom under the mountain and the strong men of Dale were no more. To resist any force that Sauron might send to regain the northern passes in the mountains and the old land of Angmar, there were only the dwarves of the Iron Hills, and behind them lay a desolation and a dragon. The dragon Sauron might use with terrible effect. Often I said to myself, I must find some means of dealing with Smaug. But a direct stroke against Dol Guldur is needed still more. We must disturb Sauron's plans. I must make the council see that. Those were my dark thoughts as I jogged along the road. I was tired, and I was going to the Shire for a short rest after being away from it for more than 20 years. I thought that if I put them out of my mind for a while, I might perhaps find some way of dealing with these troubles. And so I did indeed, though I was not allowed to put them out of my mind. For just as I was nearing Bree, I was overtaken by Thorin Oakenshield, who lived then in exile beyond the northwest borders of the Shire. To my surprise, he spoke to me, and it was at that moment that the tide began to turn. He was troubled too, so troubled that he actually asked for my advice. So I went with him to his halls in the Blue Mountains, and I listened to his long tale. I soon understood that his heart was hot with brooding on his wrongs and the loss of the treasure of his forefathers, and burdened too with the duty of revenge upon Smaug that he had inherited. Dwarves take such duties very seriously. I promised to help him if I could. I was as eager as he was to see the end of Smaug, but Thorin was all for plans of battle and war, as if he were really King Thorin II, and I could see no hope in that. So I left him and went off to the Shire and picked up the threads of news. It was a strange business. I did no more than follow the lead of chance and made many mistakes on the way. Somehow I had been attracted by Bilbo long before as a child and a young hobbit. He had not quite come of age when I had last seen him. He had stayed in my mind ever since, with his eagerness and his bright eyes and his love of tales and his questions about the wide world outside the Shire. As soon as I entered the Shire, I heard news of him. He was getting talked about, it seemed. Both his parents had died early for Shire folk, at about 80, and he had never married. He was already growing a bit queer, they said, and went off for days by himself. He could be seen talking to strangers, even dwarves. Suddenly, in my mind, these three things came together. The great dragon with his lust, and his keen hearing and scent, the sturdy, heavy-booted dwarves with their old, burning grudge, and the quick, soft-footed hobbit, sick at heart, I guessed, for a sight of the wide world. I laughed at myself, but I went off at once to have a look at Bilbo to see what 20 years had done to him, and whether he was promising, as gossip seemed to make out. But he was not at home. They shook their heads in Hobbiton when I went after him. "Up again," said one hobbit. It was Holman, the gardener, I believe. Off again. He'll go right off one of these days if he isn't careful. Why, I asked him where he was going and when he would be back, and I don't know, he says, and then he looks at me queerly. It depends if I meet any, Holman, he says. It's the elves' New Year tomorrow. A pity, and him so kind a body. You wouldn't find a better from the downs to the river. Better and better, I thought. I think I shall risk it. Time was getting short. I had to be with the White Council in August at the latest, or Saruman would have had his way and nothing would be done. And quite apart from the great matters that might prove fatal to the quest, the powers in Dol Guldur would not leave any attempt on Erebor unhindered, unless he had something else to deal with. So I rode off back to Thorin in haste to tackle the difficult task of persuading him to put aside his lofty designs and go secretly and take Bilbo with him. Without seeing Bilbo first. It was a mistake and nearly proved disastrous. For Bilbo had changed, of course. At least he was getting rather greedy and fat, and his old desires had dwindled down to a sort of private dream. Nothing could have been more dismaying than to find it actually in danger of coming true. He was altogether bewildered, and made a complete fool of himself. Thorin would have left in a rage, but for another strange chance, which I will mention in a moment. But you know how things went at any rate, as Bilbo saw them. The story would sound rather different if I had written it. For one thing, he did not realise at all how fatuous the dwarves thought him, or how angry they were with me. Thorin was much more indignant and contemptuous than he perceived. He was indeed contemptuous from the beginning, and thought that I had planned the whole affair simply as to make a mock of him. It was only the map and the key that saved the situation. But I had not thought of them for years. It was not until I got to the Shire and had time to reflect on Thorin's tale that I suddenly remembered the strange chance that had put them in my hands, and it began now to look less like chance. I remembered a dangerous journey of mine 91 years before, when I had entered Dol Guldur in disguise and had found there an unhappy dwarf lying in the pits. I had no idea who he was. He had a map that had belonged to Durin's folk in Moria, and a key that seemed to go with it, although he was too far gone to explain it, and he said that he had possessed a great ring. Nearly all his ravings were of that. The last of the seven, he said over and over again. But all these things he might have come by in many ways. He might have been a messenger caught as he fled, or even a thief trapped by a greater thief. But he had the map and the key. He gave the map and the key to me. For my son, he said, and then he died, and soon after I escaped myself. I stowed the things away, but by some warning of my heart I kept them always with me, safe, but soon almost forgotten. I had other business in Dol Guldur, more important and perilous than all the treasure of Erebor. Now I remembered it all again, and it seemed clear that I had heard the last words of Thrain II, though he did not name himself or his son, and Thorin, of course, did not know what had become of his father, nor did he ever mention the last of the 7 rings. I had the plan and the key of the secret entrance to Erebor, by which Thror and Thrain had escaped, according to Thorin's tale, and I had kept them, though without any design of my own, until the moment they would prove most useful. Fortunately, I did not make any mistake in my use of them. I've kept them up my sleeve, as you say in the Shire, until things looked quite hopeless. As soon as Thorin saw them, he really made up his mind to follow my plan, as far as a secret expedition went, at any rate. Whatever he thought of Bilbo, he would have set out himself. The existence of a secret door, only discoverable by dwarves, made it seem at least possible to find out something of the dragon's doings, perhaps even to recover some gold, or some heirloom to ease his heart's longings. But that was not enough for me. I knew in my heart that Bilbo must go with him, or the whole quest would be a failure, or, as I should say now, The far more important events, by the way, would not come to pass. So I had still to persuade Thorin to take him. There were many difficulties on the road afterwards, but for me this was the most difficult part of the whole affair, though I argued with him far into the night, after Bilbo had retired. It was not finally settled until early the next morning. Thorin was contemptuous and suspicious. "He is soft," he snorted, "soft as the mud of his shire, and silly. His mother died too soon. You are playing some crooked game of your own, Master Gandalf. I am sure that you have other purposes than helping me." "You are quite right," I said. "If I had no other purposes, I should not be helping you at all, great as your affairs may seem to you. They are only a small strand in the great web. I am concerned with many strands, but that should make my advice more weighty, not less." I spoke at last with great heat. "Listen to me, Thorin Oakenshield," I said. "If this hobbit goes with you, you will succeed. If not, you will fail. A foresight is on me, and I am warning you." "I know your fame," Thorin answered. "I hope it is merited. But this foolish business of your hobbit makes me wonder whether it is foresight that is on you, and you are not crazed rather than foreseeing. So many cares may have disordered your wits." "There have certainly been enough to do so," I said, "and among them I find most exasperating a proud dwarf who will seek advice from me, without claim on me that I know of, and then rewards me with insolence. Go your own ways, Thorin Oakenshield, if you will, but if you flout my advice, you will walk on disaster, and you will get neither counsel nor aid from me again until the shadow falls on you. And curb your pride and your greed, or you will fall at the end of whatever path you take, though your hands be full of gold." He blenched a little at that, but his eyes smouldered. "Do not threaten me," he said. "I will use my own judgment in this matter, as in all that concerns me." "Do so then," I said. "I can say no more unless it is this. I do not give my love or trust lightly, Thorin, but I am fond of this hobbit, and wish him well. Treat him well, and you shall have my friendship to the end of your days." I said that without hope of persuading him, but I could have said nothing better. Dwarves understand devotion to friends and gratitude to those who help them. "Very well," Thorin said at last after silence. "He shall set out with my company if he dares, which I doubt. But if you insist on burdening me with him, you must come too, and look after your darling." "Good," I answered. "I will come and stay with you as long as I can, at least until you have discovered his worth." It proved well in the end, but at the time I was troubled, for I had the urgent matter of the White Council on my hands. So it was that the Quest of Erebor set out. I do not suppose that when it started Thorin had any real hope of destroying Smaug. There is no hope, yet it happened. But alas, Thorin did not live to enjoy his triumph or his treasure. Pride and greed overcame him, in spite of my warning. "But surely," I said, "he might have fallen in battle anyway. There would have been an attack of orcs, however generous Thorin may have been with his treasure." "That is true," said Gandalf. "Poor Thorin. He was a great dwarf of a great house, whatever his faults, and though he fell at the end of the journey, it was largely due to him that the kingdom under the mountain was restored as I desired. But Dain Ironfoot was a worthy successor, and now we hear that he fell, fighting before Erebor again, even while we fought here. I should call it a heavy loss, if it was not a wonder rather that in his great age he could still wield his axe as mightily as they said he did, standing over the body of King Brand before the gate of Erebor until darkness fell. It might have gone very differently indeed. The main attack was diverted southwards, it is true, and yet even so, with his far-stretched right hand, Sauron could have done terrible harm in the north while we defended Gondor, if King Brand and King Dain had not stood in his path. When you think of the great battle of Pelennor, do not forget the Battle of Dale. Think of what might have been. Dragon fire and savage swords in Eriador. There might be no queen in Gondor. We might now only hope to return from victory here to ruin and ash. But that has been averted, because I met Thorin Oakenshield one evening on the edge of spring, not far from Bree. A chance meeting, as we say in Middle-earth.